welcome back to my channel. For today's Christmas card series, we're going to do this really fun Christmas bulbs. Now you can use whatever colors that you like, and I like the technique that we're using here because it makes it look like these bulbs are sitting in some snow down here at the bottom. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and let's get right into it. So I'm going to go ahead and get my paint ready first for this one, because the paper here that I'm using, this is the Hahnemuhle cold pressed paper, and I find it dries extremely fast, which is good if you like that, but I kind of like having my paper stay wet a little bit longer. So normally I would just go in with water and then grab my paints and throw them in, but I'm going to get the paint ready here just to give myself even a little bit more time. I'm going to grab my phthalo blue here because I really love this bright blue, but it's a little brighter than I want for my Christmas bulb. I want it to be a little bit deeper of a blue. So I'm going to add a little bit of indigo blue here just to kind of deepen it up, and you can see it just becomes a little bit of a darker blue. And then I'll kind of see how I like that, and I can always add more color in if I need to. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab a second size 8 brush. Since I've already got my paint on this brush, I'm just going to use a clean one here just to wet this. And I am using a decent amount of water here, just because, like I said, this paper does dry fairly quickly. Right up to all the edges. And if I go over the snow a little bit, or if I go over here a little bit, that's totally fine, because I am going to make a little bit of a shine on either side. So I'll put that brush down now, and I'm going to grab that brush where I had this blue paint, and I'm going to start just dropping it in, and I'm going to focus kind of around the edges a little bit more, because that's where I want this to be the darkest. And then I'm going to kind of come down here through the middle and just pick an area where I want like my shines to be. I'm just going to go back in and just dab a little bit more paint in, and I may even just grab a hint of neutral tint just to kind of darken it up even more here so you can see the difference there. So I'm going to get a bit of this kind of up here at the top, just drop it in, a little bit around the edges, kind of down here. And I'm trying to work fairly quickly because this paper does dry pretty quick. And I'm just going to rinse that off, dab it off, and I'm going to go back in with my blue if I feel like I need to add some area to it. Then I'm just going to rinse that off really well, dab it off, and I'm going to kind of go in and just soften the edges here to the shine. Again, dab it off and just soften the edges so I don't have any water or any paint on my bulb here. And I just want to kind of just start bringing this paint in so it's barely a white. And then I'm just going to start just getting any paint off there. And at this point, you can kind of fix your shine if you want it to be a little bit bigger. And if I feel like I'm picking up too much blue on my brush, I'm just going to dab that off and get like a nice clean brush here again. And again, I'm dabbing it off so that I'm not adding water to the painting. There, and I think I like that, so I'm gonna leave it like that. I'm gonna go ahead and dry this real quick, and then we'll come back with our next step. Okay, so that's dry enough now, and if you need to clean up your edges, go ahead. But I kind of like that it's not perfectly round because it kind of gives more of like a handmade look. But what I want to do is grab a little bit of this blue color, and I don't need it to be as pigmented. I wanted it to be a little bit less pigmented, and I'm just gonna get a little bit on this bulb here. And I'm gonna kind of have it come out to about there. Then again, I'm gonna rinse off, not dab all of the water off my brush, and then I'm just gonna soften this edge out so that it sort of just bleeds out a little bit. And you just get like kind of a hint of that color transferring onto the other bulb. And then I'm also going to grab a bit of this darker color here, and I'm just going to get it down here. I might even add just a little bit more Payne's Gray. And I'm just adding it along the edge here, and if it goes over onto the snow, that's perfectly fine. And again, I'm just dabbing off, and I'm just cleaning this edge, just softening it just a little bit so there's like a hint of a shadow down there, but it's not super defined. And then I'm going to take some of this blue and just kind of get a little bit of it on the paper down here, and I want it to be pretty watered down. So right under where our snow would be. A little bit there, maybe a little bit there. I'm gonna rinse that and just kind of let it like kind of bleed down a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just something like that. Now look, this paper is making a little bit of a harsh line there where I added that extra color in, even though I had my paper dry. So I don't know if this is my favorite paper. So now I'm going to go ahead and make up the red that I want for this bulb here. And I think I want like a nice Christmassy red, so I'm going to use my alizarin crimson. And I'm just going to go ahead and use this down here. And I might add in a hint of my Winsor red too, just to brighten it up a little bit. So it's sort of like a nice mix between the two. So it's a bright but dark red, if that makes sense. I might even dry this just really quick just to make sure it is completely dry. Okay, so we're going to start on our red bulb now that everything is thoroughly dry. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some clean water. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing. Now I think I'm going to start on this side and work my way over just in case this blue starts lifting. As I'm coming up and touching this edge, this blue is definitely bleeding in, so I hope you guys can see that. But I wanted that for this picture anyway, because where this bulb, oh, I don't want the blue there though, where this bulb is kind of in the background, that color from the front bulb would kind of be showing through. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this red and kind of do the same thing. I'm just going to get this down, just starting, and I'm going to kind of pick a spot come through. So I think those will be my 2 highlight areas. I've definitely got to mix up a little bit more paint going on. Actually, I might mix just over here so it's a little bit drier. So I'm using the Winsor and Newton red and my alizarin crimson. And then I'm just going to come through and get the darkest areas in. And now that I'm kind of learning how to work a little bit better with this paper, it's not so bad. This paper isn't so bad, but you've got to work quick and you've got to work really wet. I'm going to add just a hint of violet into this. So this is the Winsor violet, and maybe even just a hint of neutral tint because I want it to be sort of like a dark purpley red. And I'm going to kind of get this in here, just in the very darkest spots here. So I'm coming along under here. I'm going to come along some of the edges. Okay. So there, and then I'm going to rinse this brush really well, dab it off, and I'm going to come in and just start softening these highlight areas here. And basically what I want to do is draw the paint towards the middle to soften it, but I want to keep some of the light too. And I'm just dabbing it off so I have a really dry brush, and I think I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, but what I'm going to do first is take a very watery version of this red that we mixed, and I'm going to start putting it in down here because I don't care if these 2 spots kind of bleed together a little bit. And I'm going to get just a little bit over here. Then I'm going to water this down really well and just really soften this out. And just let that color kind of bleed down and form any hard edges down at the bottom if it wants to. So just kind of like that. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a really good dry. Okay, so this paper definitely warps quite a bit, but that's totally fine. You could put a couple of books on top of it and let it flatten out completely after a day or so. Over on Patreon, we just went ahead and did a second layer just to kind of brighten it up a little bit and get rid of any of those harsh edges. I'm finding this paper is one of the papers that you're going to have to layer a little bit. Your first layer is not going to come out perfect, whereas with arches, I get really nice blended areas, and even the Academy paper. So just be mindful of what paper you're using. You might have to layer up a little bit, but we're just going to go ahead and do the clasps now, or whatever those are called, the little hooky things. I'm going to take my Winsor and Newton ink and make sure you shake it up really well so that it's all incorporated. And I've just got my size 2 Simply Simmons brush. I like a brush that has a little bit of a longer tip to it when I'm doing finer work here. And I think I'm going to make this part and the little circle things both silver. Sometimes I like to mix it up and do 1 silver and 1 gold, but I think today, just for simplicity, I'm just going to do them both in silver. And I really like this silver too. There's that. And then I'm just going to come around. And I'm going to do the same with the red one. And this ink is pretty opaque, so if you end up going over top of this part with the color of your bulb, whatever you decided to use for your ornament, it will cover it up nicely. So I do like that. And I'm just going to move my water out of the way so I can kind of get my hand up. And sometimes I have to do it in 2 motions. And that one turned out a little bit thicker, but that's totally fine. Now you could go ahead and do splatters, or you could splatter with the silver, or you could even do little designs on these bulbs if you want. But sometimes I like some really nice simplistic cards like this, and I really love the effect of the colors on the snow there, because it kind of makes it look like it's sitting more in snow. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you see my other Christmas card tutorials and other tutorials that I post on my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next one.